Hey everyone, welcome to this last lecture of week one. Last lecture, we looked at this concept of mythos and we contrasted it with the idea of logos. So, mythos and logos are two different ways of knowing the world. Mythos referring to experiential sort of knowing, while logos refers to a knowing of fact about the world, that something is true or false about the world. The mythos is about having a sense experience, an acquaintance with reality, with the human condition. And when we took a look at the difference last time, we looked at something like this poem. And if we were to take a mythos approach to knowing the poem, we would try to imagine the poem so that we can get a felt sense of what the poem is is trying to communicate to us. Uh, as opposed to a logos approach, which would be to try to literally understand the words that make up the sentences of the poem and try to get a objective, factual interpretation of what the poem is saying. And oftentimes, when we try to understand a religion, we take a logos approach to understanding the religion. What does this is this belief true? Is this doctrine true? As opposed to asking the question, what does this belief um, say about how certain people experience the world? What does this ritual um, how can we get a sense for how certain people experience the human condition through this ritual? We also noted that there are various dimensions to religions. Now, the issue that we often face is that when we're trying to understand a religion, especially from the outside looking in, we can only understand these aspects of religion based upon our point of view. So, if we are um, coming to a religion from a different time period than it was intended, from a different culture than it originated, we can see how this can be problematic. And we may not really have a sense for what these things mean because we're not looking at them or experiencing them from the point of view that they were intended. This is one of the reasons we're going to be focusing on the mythos of the religion. Understanding a religion's foundational story of the human condition gives us the right context, or we hope that it gives us the right context with which we can understand our religion's belief system, their social practices, their rituals, their architecture, etc. When we take a look at religions, it's sort of like working with a puzzle. It's kind of hard to make sense out of everything without having the right background or context with which to understand all the different elements of religion. Two men are found dead in their cabin in the woods. The forest around them has been burned down, but the cabin has not. How did they die? Now, as you think about this puzzle, because of your perspective, because of your point of view, you're automatically going to have certain assumptions about what this is saying, about what the scenario looks like. And those assumptions limit us and prevent us, possibly, from fully understanding what's going on as described in the puzzle. Now, we'll discuss this in our live conference this week. And you might notice, you might see as a result of the live conference, how this is analogous to our approach to religions. That in order to really understand what's going on, we need the proper context. We need the proper background information. So the hope is that as we go from religion to religion, you try to get a sense for how each of these religions are experiencing life in the time period, in the culture, in the region that these religions are sprouting from. And as we get a sense for how they experienced life, as we get a sense for the lens with which they are viewing the human condition, that will then hopefully give us some insight on how to really understand their rituals, their practices, etc. For this lecture, I had you read a Sufi wisdom tale, and the tale had various elements to it. And we can interpret the tale in various ways. One way of thinking about this tale is to see it as a story about trying to understand religions. Now, if you recall, the story had several elements, so let's go through four of them. There is an island that exists beyond normal experience. This island can be accessed through certain techniques and forgotten or secret knowledge. It's hard to understand these techniques for those who are not familiar with them. And if you remember the story, people would brush this off, right? When people were asking about what this strange thing is you're doing, and individuals said, "Oh, we're learning to swim, or we're learning to build boats," because these things are so foreign to some of the inhabitants of the newer island. These sorts of skills are brushed off as being nonsense. And the fourth element is the idea that many within the newer island were asleep. So just to recap the story, the idea being that there was inhabitants of an island that had to leave, and the plan was to always return back to this home island. But after having left, people soon forgot that they were originally from this other island. And though there were some individuals in the newer island, their newer home, that remembered this fact and remembered some of the skills necessary to come back, people soon brushed those individuals off as being full of nonsense because they couldn't understand what these things were that they were doing. Swimming, building boats made no sense to them. So we can see this as a parable about trying to understand religions. In one way, in one sense, you can think of the original home island as the original regions and time periods and cultures of these religions. And over time, as these religions grow and spread, sometimes it seems as if they contain secret knowledge or forgotten knowledge that doesn't really make sense to those from the outside when they hear about it or read about it or listen about it from modern time periods or from cultures that are outside of the original culture. So as we start to pursue our understanding of religions, it's really important to keep this fact in mind, that we are always coming from our point of view, from our modern culture, from our modern time period. And we should expect that we may not really understand what we're looking at from various religions because we are not from those cultures, we're not from those time periods. Now, another way of taking a look at this parable is a parable about reality itself. Again, let's look at these four elements. An island exists beyond our normal experience. So the idea here is you can think of this parable as pointing to the metaphysical truth that there's a reality beyond what we normally experience. There's some sort of transcendent plane, some sort of transcendent truth beyond our ordinary understanding of reality. The second idea, this island can be accessed through certain techniques and forgotten secrets. We can think of some of these religions pointing to the idea that there are ways of accessing this transcendent reality. There are methods with which we can commune with or have an understanding of this reality beyond normal perception. Now, and from the outside looking in, when we see these techniques, It's hard to understand what they are because they don't make sense from our modern cultural perspective. The idea that most on the island are asleep, you can think about in terms of people in cultures, in modern cultures particularly, who are unaware that there's something beyond, that there's something more than this. So, in another sense, then we take a look at this parable and see it as really a story that relays what religions in general tell us, that there's something transcendent, there's something beyond the normal human condition. And there are ways of getting beyond this human condition. There are ways of accessing this thing that's transcendent. But because these ways need initiation, because these ways need training, from the outside looking in, they can sometimes seem nonsensical. So our hope then is as we delve into these various religions, we see these various techniques. We get a sense for what is this picture of the transcendent that these religions all describe and point to. And I will obviously let you make a choice, let you have make a decision on what you think of these sorts of philosophies and metaphysical ideas. So then, to summarize, our approach to these religions is about trying to find the right context, the right mythos, right, in order for us to better understand all the various dimensions of religious life. This means that we'll take a look at both the exoteric and esoteric uh, aspects of religions. Exoteric refers to what can be seen from the outside. And oftentimes, when we're discussing religions, we often primarily talk simply about the exoteric, what we can see people do, what we see as a belief that's written down or that's espoused, the easy parts of a religion to understand. But the esoteric refers to aspects of religion from the inside. In some sense, people can think of the esoteric aspects of religion as the secret aspects of religion. Not so much necessarily because there are those who are trying to not disseminate information, but in the sense that you need to be inside the religion to understand these things. One example I give to students in my philosophy classes is to think about a subject matter that you are completely oblivious to or that you have no knowledge of. So let's take electrical engineering. So let's say you don't know anything about electrical engineering. You watch an engineer work and you can see maybe what they do. You can see them move their hands, moving wires around. You can see them behind a computer, drawing schematics. In this sense, it's an exoteric understanding of what's happening. But do you really know what they're doing? Do you really have a sense for the purpose and the meaning of their actions? To really get a sense of it, you have to become an engineer. You have to really study to get a sense for what it is they're doing and why they're doing it. This is what we think of when we refer to esoteric. Now, obviously, people don't often talk about the esoteric aspects of religion because this takes indoctrination. This takes effort. This takes work. And that's the sort of work that we're going to be trying to do, we'll be trying to do together as a class for the next 11 weeks.